Welcome to Daily Armor. Today we're going to be in the book of Job, again in the book of Job, but um, really I don't even really have a scripture specific because it's really covering chapter 38, chapter 39, chapter 40 on into and as well as in 41, and I have just to have a challenge for you to read all this scripture. In here, there's 83 questions that God is asking Job. When Job had his questions, Job had just went through a terrible ordeal. I mean, just awful, the most awful thing that we could ever imagine. His family, his income, his health, everything was affected. Every part of his life. His friends turned their back on him. His wife was frustrated and aggravated with him. Everything was just going against him, and he came to the point where he was asking God why. He wanted some answers, and God answered him with these questions. And with these 83 questions, I want you to think about. I want you to think about in the kind of turning this into the next few devotions. I think will be on prayer and about the power that's in the prayer, not because of us, but because of the power of the Lord that we serve. And I just love how you see so many things that God has done, what He has control over, every little detail that maybe we take for granted, maybe that we don't think about. We know the world takes credit for it. I know the world explains it with the Big Bang. The world says it's part of evolution. The world says it's part of this or that. God is the creator of everything. He is in control of everything. And I love how he mentions so many different topics. You'll see here in chapter 38, verses 4 through 7, he's talking about the earth. He laid the foundations. It's talking about how big it is. I mean, just that right there should be enough. But if we need more, he goes on further to, and he's in control of the sea. See, verse number 8, who shut up the sea with doors? In other words, he's put the sea here, and you know when those waves, those big huge waves are crashing and they just look out of control. Yeah, God's saying, even over those proud waves, I tell him when to stop. He's saying, I have control even over that. If you notice in verse number 12, he's got control over the sun coming up, the sun going down. When day is supposed to start, God's in control of that. He's the one who put all that in place. He's the one who put that in motion. He's the one who's in control. Look at what it says here. Verse number 12, hast thou commanded the morning since thy days and caused the day spring to know its place? Have you caused the morning to come up? Have you caused the sun to rise? Have you caused that breaking of the day, that when we look out early in the morning, if you get up early like I do and you look outside and you just see the little glow, that morning is springing forth? Am I in control of that? No, God is. God's in control of that. And it's wonderful. And I want you to really, really realize how much power, how much strength, how much of control that God has. So then when we are teaching and putting into practice the praying of those prayers that we have, of those things that we want the Lord to intervene on and intervene for, and we know that we're not doing it within ourselves. God says that he can do so much with our prayers, because what he's wanting us to do is submit ourselves to him. And then when we do, we are tapping into his power. This is the kind of power who He's over creation. He made the earth. He made me. He made you. He made the animals and the trees and the sea, and he's got control over the waves, and he's got control over the morning of when it comes up and when it goes down. He's got control over the weather. It talks about in verse 22, the treasures of the snow. I got excited the first time I read that several days ago, and I get excited every time I think about the treasures of the snow. And for those of us who the powder when it comes down, and you can almost see and they're all, every snowflake is different. They're beautiful. And when they come down and you're outside, it makes me want to tear up. It is absolutely magical, but it's not magic. It's God. It's God. The treasures of the snow. It's just amazing. If we go on down, and it talks about the wind and the water, and just the rain on the earth. Heavenly bodies is talked about in verses 31 through 38. Just amazing things that God is in control over. It gets into talking about the animals, and we're still in chapter 38. Starts talking about the animals. It says, verse 39, will thou hunt the prey for the lion and feel the appetite of the young lions? He's like, did you put that drive in them? God's saying, I did that. You didn't do that. Did you give them that drive? Did you give them their power, their strength, those instincts that these animals have, those abilities that the animals have? God gave that to them. He gave everything a purpose. Everything has a purpose, and everything works in harmony together. Why can't others see that it takes a master to plan all this out? It takes a designer, an architect, a creator. It takes the creator to do all that. We have the ability to access this kind of power when we submit to prayer. We submit to prayer, not demanding of the Lord, because He's got power over all this. I don't have any right to say, Lord, you have to do this or you have to do that. No, that would be so disrespectful. God has all control. And He has control over what I need and what I pray about. So He's telling me, and we'll be talking about that the next few days, about praying in His will and waiting on His timing and knowing that He's got all the answers. And that knowing also, I just want you to I want you to really, really take your time, go slowly through chapter 38, 39, 40, and 41. Go slowly and really ponder on what God's saying. He's saying, I have control over all of this. And you have the ability, if you're saved, you have the authority to even ask me for these things that I have the power to control, because we're tapping into His source. He's the source of power. He's the source of everything. And He has all access to everything. He's in control of everything, even though others think that that's not true. We read this here, through all these chapters in the book of Job, and you realize there is absolutely nothing. It should make you pray those bigger prayers and not be afraid, not be fearful. Not assume that He doesn't want to. Pray and ask Him and leave it up to Him. There's some things I'm having to leave it up to Him, and I'm having to wait. But you know what? We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. There's joy. There's joy in that. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. One of the animals that I want you to notice, and just because I've got something personal going on in my life, and actually kind of experienced this last night, verse number 19 says, hast thou given the horse strength? Hast thou closed his neck with thunder? I have a horse. His name is Moose. We've had him for, I'm going to say 15 years or so. He's been sick. He's been really sick this past month, and I've had the vet out twice. The vet came out again Friday, and we had to change up his medicine. He's just been really, really sick. Got pneumonia, just was battling some allergies and stuff. He's getting older. He'll be 23 in October, so he's getting older. And so we needed to give him some medicine to help him. He wasn't breathing well. His breathing was very labored. Is still a little bit labored, but so much better. But he just has not been himself. And I know he's getting older, but I knew something was wrong, more than just his age. And so the vet came out, and we tried one medication, and it helped a little bit, but it just wasn't really helping very much. And so the vet came back out on Friday, and we changed up some medicine, added an antibiotic. And within hours, the new medication was starting to help just seeing a little bit of less of relaxation in his nostrils. Those nostrils are just flaring, trying to suck in all the air that he could. He's just taking large breaths, and just saw that relax just a little bit. And then last night, we come home from church, and we had went out with some friends, and we'd come home pretty late, and I needed it, and we've bumped up Moose's feed, and I needed to give him his medicine. And so, even though it was very dark and it was late when we got home last night, and we come home to no power, it's the third time we've lost power at the house. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so I made Todd go out there with me because I couldn't turn on any lights out where I feed up at, and I had floodlights and things, but I couldn't turn anything on, and I'm deathly afraid of a snake. And so I told Todd, I said, you come out there with me, and we'll have more, 2 flashlights, and make sure I can see good, and make sure that there's no snakes out there. I was hollering for Moose, but I couldn't see him. It was so dark. I couldn't turn on, I had no lights to turn on. So it was so dark, and just shining the flashlight. And Todd's like, "Come on, let's go up through the fence line." And we were on the golf cart. Let's go up through the fence line. And so I went up along the fence line, and I'm hollering for him, and we're looking and looking, and we can't see. I'm just trying to shine to see his eyes, and I hear him, and he is making a beeline. I mean, he's not done this in probably 2 months. He's not ran like this in a long time, and he sounded like we couldn't see him, but we hear boom, boom. I mean, it sounded like thunder. That boy was running as fast as he could, and he no longer was just barely walking, couldn't hardly go. He was thundering to the barn. He was coming as hard as he could go. God is saying right here, hast thou given the horse strength? They are strong. Moose is very broad. He's very tall. He's very muscular. He's going down in age a little bit, but he is still so strong. And God is saying, I've given him that strength. I have given these animals all of these jobs, all of these purposes. It says, hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? He had that neck stretched out there, and he was beating the ground with his hooves and coming as hard as he could, like thunder. And I was like, I teared up. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I come in and read this today, reading this morning. Have you done that? Did I do that? Did the doctor do that? No, God gave him that strength. The medicine just helped get rid of some of that fluid so that he could tap into that strength again, the strength that God gave him to begin with, the ability that God gave a horse to begin with. God is in control. And when we understand what kind of power that our God, the God that we serve, the God that we worship, the God that we love and adore, and the God that I put my faith and trust in, when we tap into that, when you look at all these questions, God is asking Job, he's asking me, he's asking you, did you give them that power? Did you give that animal that ability to do that? Did you give that eagle that ability to fly up to the tallest mountains and perch up on the most dangerous rock and perch up there and be able to look afar off and see her prey from way up there? Did you give her eyes that ability to do that? Did you give her the strength for those wings to take them up to the highest of the heights? Look here at what it says. Doth the eagle mount up at thy command? Does she mount up at your command? And no. Does she mount up at my command? No. God gave them that ability to do that. He holds the treasures of the snow. He gave the animals the ability to do all of these different jobs that he wanted them to do, because he's the one who's in control of how things work. Of the morning, of when that day breaks, when the day spring breaks forth, and everything that's dark, and he brings that light to the situation, to that dark situation. He's the one who has control over that. Whatever dark situation that you're praying about, he's got the control of that day spring, and he tells that sun, okay, now it's time. Break forth and shed some light on the situation. God's going to shed some light on some situations in his way and his timing, but we have to understand. When we are praying to the one who has all the power. So my challenge for you today is read Job 38, read Job 39, read Job 40, read Job 41. Look at all these things, because when you really understand the mighty God we serve, I think it's going to change the way you pray about some things. I think it's going to change the way what you pray for, what you pray about. I think you're going to be challenged. You're going to be excited because we are asking God to use His power in some situations. And when you see, when He tells you these 83 things that He, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. This should just be some, He's not just giving you one example or two examples. He's given us 83 examples of how wonderful and how powerful that He is. And I hope this changes your prayer life. And we'll be looking at some scripture pertaining to that in the next few days. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.